Welcome to Cherry Street Investor Education with Kavita Baratake, passive income coach and founder of Cherry Street Investments. Education that is designed for you to take control of your financial life. Join us to learn how you can create multiple passive income streams, diversify your portfolio, save on your taxes, and much more. Become a better investor and fast track your financial goals. Here's your host, Kavita Baratake.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I'm Kavita Baratake. I'm the passive income coach and founder of Cherry Street Investments, and I'm joined today by Dharma Raja, who's the founder of Epitome Development. I called it Epitome, and he corrected me not too long ago. And Will McCashin, who is a manager at Jones Carter. It's an engineering firm. So I'll introduce the two of them a little bit more in detail, but I wanted to kind of set the stage for why I set up this call today. And part of it was my own background. I come from multifamily value add, where we bought new existing buildings and we added value to them. And that worked for a while, right? It still does work, but as properties are getting more expensive, new builds and land development is starting to look more and more attractive when the differential between an existing build and a new build narrows, right? So that's kind of what brought me to this whole idea of new builds and land development. And Dharma and I just happened to connect at the right time. And I said, hey, this is a great opportunity for investors. I love existing multifamily from a cash flow perspective, but there's also another piece of it, which is equity growth. And that equity growth is massive for land development and new builds, right? So I look at a play of those two things for my investors and not just one or the other. And as we've started buying more expensive properties and cap rates are compressing, it starts to become more and more attractive to look at equity growth in other asset classes. And so I wanted to bring this presentation together to understand what's involved in the land development process. And sometimes it's not just buying a piece of land and sitting on it, right? So Dharma and will talk us through what's involved today. And so I'm excited to have them on and also learn with you guys, along with you guys, learn a little bit more with them on here. Just a quick disclaimer. Again, we always do this for educational purposes. We're not selling anything today. We're not offering any investments. So hold off on all your, I know we talked about an existing investment not too long ago, but hold off on any questions related to that because today is an educational webinar. This will be posted on YouTube. We will have investment specific webinars and you can reserve your questions on that specific investment for that webinar. Always consult your own legal team as well as CPA, financial advisor, as the case might be for your specific situations. So we always do general talks and educational talks. So don't take this and go try to recreate it and say, hey, it didn't work or whatever.
Don't try this at home.
Don't try this at home. Be careful. If you do try it, it's on your own risk. Few housekeeping items. Just so you know, everyone's on mute except the panelist and the host. If you have any issues at any point with audio visual, please let us know in the chat box, and also reserve your questions for the Q&A box located right now. It just makes it easier for us to answer questions because the chat people keep commenting stuff there and it gets lost, the questions. So I ask that you ask it in the Q&A box. Everybody asked me this. Yes, the webinar will be recorded. Yes, it will be sent out to all registered attendees, and it's also posted on YouTube. So I'll share the link on YouTube shortly. Do whitelist my email so it doesn't go to spam. So I get a whole bunch of emails on this every webinar, so I'm just putting it out there. And this is where you can go find all the recordings. If you go subscribe, I would request you to subscribe. It'll notify you when we do any uploads. So it just becomes easier for me and you. So it's short link for this is bit.ly, cherry-street. So a few upcoming webinars. The big one I have an event coming up soon and I'll talk about that, but we'll have a discussion on passive income, active life. And then I think some of these will get pushed out to next year. We'll talk about premium financing and also residential mortgage and financing options. And as always, I welcome any topic suggestions that you have. I will be moving the webinar days to Wednesday starting this month. It'll be every other Wednesday, twice a month on investing, taxation. We get estate planners, we get asset protection attorneys, and much more. So if you have any specific topic suggestions, please drop it in the Q&A box or in the chat box, or send me a note, please. Quick update here. Dharma is actually going to speak on this event as well. It's a 2-day conference on November 6th and 7th, coming up soon. We have a huge lineup of speakers across different topics, including investing in the post-COVID world, build-to-rent communities, new builds and land development. Renewable energy is a new one, which is outside your real estate realm. We like energy investments because of the tax savings. So please join us and check out this huge number of topics we have. If you're interested, you can go to passiveinvestored.com. Buy your tickets now. And there's a $10 coupon. It's Cherry Save 10. So you can use that. For folks who are new on this call today, I see a lot of familiar faces. I'm not going to spend too much time on my bio. You guys know me. I came here from Bangalore, India in 1998. Have a background in computer science, worked in tech for 20 years. And real estate was my path to financial freedom. And so here I am, started Cherry Street with the focus on educating more people on investments in real estate and alternative investments. So that's kind of what I do. Let's talk about Dharma, the man of the show today. He is the president founder of Epitome Development. He has a real rich history in real estate development, and he comes from a family of entrepreneurs. His grandfather, incidentally, which we were talking to each other the other day, and my grandfather was also in the insurance business, and incidentally, his grandfather was a founder of an insurance company in India. So I think entrepreneurship sort of runs in Dharma's blood. I think, Dharma, you worked for Deloitte for a long time, didn't you?
That's right. I was in the corporate world for quite a while till I gave it enough time to test to see if it would work for me, and it failed the test every time. So, I finally called it quits. But I gave it its fair shot, and it was really good. I enjoyed it. It taught me a lot, execution, management, handling large teams, and a lot of that stuff. So, I was almost a partner at Deloitte when I left. I was just short of it.
So. He besides real estate, he also has a technology platform, and that's sort of how we connected with our tech backgrounds and real estate. It's called mass.io. You can check it out. He's a big golfer, and he loves traveling. So anything you want to add to that, Dharma?
Will is a better golfer than I am.
Oh, he is. Okay. I just remember.
That's great. That's great. That's great, Kavita. Thanks. I think that covers it all. I think the fact that I grew up in real estate and then moved into the corporate world and decided that wasn't for me, and I was lucky that I already kind of knew my way around this sector before I decided to jump back in. So it made it much easier than starting afresh. So
makes sense. Excited again to have Bill on. Like I said, he came in literally at short notice, and I didn't know if he was joined today. So I'm excited to have you on, Bill. He's a trained civil engineer with a degree in civil engineering from University of Mississippi, and he works for a company called Jones Carter. And in his Jones Carter experience, he's designed everything from a beer garden to a Capitol Mall and several residential, commercial, and mixed-use developments. And he's been lending his engineering expertise to development projects in both Houston as well as Austin for the last 7 years mostly, right? Will, do you want to add something to this? Add a little more color?
Yeah, no, I mean, being in the land development industry, it scratches a lot of itches. There's business aspect, there's politics, there's managing projects, supervising right now over 120 projects across the region. And so you really get to a lot of different aspects of the working world, even, a little bit of lawyer sometimes. So, and then the people you meet and interact with and the land you get to look at. and learn about. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. And another thing I want to add about Dharma is like crazy, right? Like here's a guy, he drives to Houston. I mean, he lives in Houston, but he does a lot of projects in Austin. I say this because he is just so driven when it comes to land, right? He's almost at Houston, he's driving back, and then someone tells him about a land deal. He turns around and drives right back to Austin. So that's Dharma when it comes to land. He's just obsessed. So I like people who are obsessed and passionate about what they do. So no one better than them to come talk about land development today. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dharma and Bill to take it from here. Thank you guys for being on. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kavita. I think that was a good introduction. It's not the first time I've been called crazy. I appreciate the compliment. if it is backhanded compliment, yeah.
It's a passionate crazy.
That's right. That's right. It's partly the market that makes you that way too, in a way, But yeah. No, I think thanks a lot, Kavita, for arranging this, and I think it's going to be very interesting I always am of the opinion that as we share what little we know, we learn more in the process. And when we get a lot of questions from people, it helps us think in new dimensions, and it opens up a new box that we go back and then explore. And then, it's overall a cumulative learning experience, right? So I really appreciate you arranging this, and thank you to everybody for joining in from wherever you are. So I think the goal of today is to really kind of, we'll probably scratch the surface on why land. COVID, real estate has been hot for several years across the globe. It's a very regional business. It's, certain types of asset classes do better in one region versus another. And there's always a play for everybody. That's what makes it really interesting. And you can choose which way you want to go. You choose what you want to do. But last year, as all of us know, was so interesting in every facet, in every business, that it changed a lot as to how we look at things. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, and what the landscape looks like today. The fact that COVID actually opened up, a lot more people working from home, and a lot more people starting to have the time to look at their alternative investments and see, hey, is this am I setting myself up for success, or do I need to get a little bit more exposure into real estate? Just changed a lot of things. There's a lot more people now who are looking at real estate seriously as an asset class or an investment than they did in the past. And I think, COVID has a big role to play. So there you go, a good positive of COVID. There's positives in everything, right? Typically what we've seen in real estate as an investor, and I've interviewed a lot of people, talked to a lot of people along my journey, and people typically start off with, they all, in their corporate jobs, they're, hey, I want to do some real estate on the side. I want to buy a single family home for rental, or if I want to buy a house, we watched HGTV come out and say, I want to flip this house. I want to, remodel this kitchen. Starts off as a passion project, and you start off that way. Most people start that way. Some people just do it as a, one-off, one deal a year kind of a thing. But the people who really are passionate about it start doing more and more. And slowly they realize that it's a lot of work to travel to 10 different sites and manage these properties. And they say, what am I do, a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex? And, it's a natural progression. And then they realize, property management starts to be an issue. And then they move into multifamily, larger scale, 50, 100 units, where they can employ a professional property management company to do all the maintenance. And then they realize, oh man, there's no more value add opportunities because most of the cap rates are compressed and the juice is gone. So where do I go? And then they move into land. And when I say they move into land, they say, okay, let's build this project. In order to build any project, you need land. So that brings us to the point of, why land's a lot more desirable in general in our ethos today than it was a few years ago as a lead-in, right? The other thing is also we're playing Texas, mostly Austin and Houston, and it's been super hot, right? I mean, everybody knows what's going on. The company's moving here. Today I heard that there's 220 companies, not just in the Bay Area or the East Coast, across the U.S. that are considering moving and having a presence at the minimum in Austin. And so there's enough news and there's action in this market, and that's another reason why it makes this asset class a lot more interesting, right? Will, would you like to add anything on this?
Yeah, and being in this market, with everyone wanting to come here, the acceleration of people moving here, it's changing the landscape so quickly, and finding land that you can create more value with, it becomes harder and harder. And so that's why you see such a frenzy in the Austin market, because people are trying to gobble up what's left that is easy. So it's only going to get harder. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's also the possibilities are multitude. Once you have a parcel and we'll talk a little bit more about how to evaluate the best use, highest and best use. But when you have something that you have a lot of options on, you can do a lot with it, and you can decide whether you want to build a certain type of product versus another. And really, I think over the years, people focus a lot on cash flow as an investment. Land's not one of those asset classes that pays out, or these kind of development projects are not asset classes that pay out till 2, 3, 4, 5 years sometimes or more. But really, they're protected mechanisms to deliver growth and growth and value, versus just cash that comes in, and then nowadays, cash you spend it on stuff, right? Or you have to find another way to invest in other asset classes, right? So, I really, I'm personally a more favorite of, I focus. I know, Kavita, passive income is your thing, and it's a great way to sustain yourself, quit your day job, and all of that stuff. But if that's not the only consideration, I think land's a great way to build wealth.
And I think partly that was the reason I got into more land side right now, Dharma, is that I think in a portfolio, it's not just important to look at cash flow, but also look at what your equity is doing for you, right? Over a period of time, yes, you want to generate cash, but then I look at my investor base, right? A lot of them have great jobs. Do they really need the cash flow? No, they don't. They want to increase the size of their pot, right? Like their pot for retirement or whatever it is. So that's kind of what is driving me getting into land, and why I think all these investors are on the call today are thinking, hey, you know what? I got cash flow. Yes, I want cash flow when I'm retired, but right now I want to focus on growing this as much as possible. And multifamily, I love multifamily, but the IRRs are 15, right? On a value add. You're talking 30, 25, 30 IRRs on these investments. So I think that also is a huge consideration, not to ding anything one versus the other. You need both of them in your investment profile or portfolio. So I think it's got its value.
Absolutely. So I think if we can cover a few interesting topics today, and go a little bit in detail. So we kind of cover the 10,000 foot view, but also dive deep some. As far as assessment is concerned, I think the first step is to really figure out what your play is. What is your goal? Like the slide says, it has been an investment play for thousands of years. People have been buying land. You typically have to decide your goals. You can do it either by looking at a specific site and then figure out the highest and best use, whether it's good for just as a land bank for a few years, or whether it's development ready. And if it is development ready, what kind of asset classes you can fit on it, whether it's just, home sites, or, whether it's a multifamily apartment complex that can potentially come on it. Is there enough foot traffic for people to rent homes there? Is there a school nearby? Is there enough retail nearby? If people really come in, if you think about you living there, would you live there, right? Would you be able to move? Will a young family be interested in moving there and staying there? And do they have enough to sustain themselves around in the neighborhood? And if that's not necessarily true, probably people are not going to be renting as much. They're going to be doing more of just buying the home. Because when people buy homes, you don't have to necessarily have a lot of stuff in the neighborhood. You're willing to drive out 10, 15 minutes sometimes. So those are the kind of market-related considerations of the highest and best use. There's also regulatory considerations and what the cities and the counties want you to do, what the zoning laws are, what the environmental aspects are, and all of that stuff. but it's also more, lucrative, and it's more efficient to decide on your goals before you decide to go after this. Is your goal just to lock up some of your money for a few years into a land investment in a growing market and kind of see how it pans out? Or are you in it to kind of participate in a development sort of opportunity where you want to be able to have some visibility, right? You got to look at your appetite, just like how you consider a stock investment. You got to look at your risk appetite. You got to look at your horizon. You got to look at, who you're doing, what kind of an investment you're doing, who are the people you're investing with if you're doing it as a part of a group. And then you have to decide what the goal is, and then you can work backwards to find the specific site. And it really helps you narrow down your areas that you want to look at. It helps you narrow down the size of the parcel, the type of the investment, and so on and so forth. These are some of the drivers. But then, as far as highest and best use, Will, maybe, I think Will would be good to shed some light on. He does a lot of this stuff for us and for a lot of clients like us. So I think you would be in a good position to share some of the insight, Will.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the first things I ask is what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do here? We've got, 10 acres and, it's zoned X, Y, and Z, and you've got, this many trees on site and you're nearby a school. What is it we want to do on the site? And I think those leading questions get you to how can we maximize your return on investment? Looking at a site, we look at hundreds of sites every week. And it's kind of a lot like dating. You don't know anything about the person. You don't know anything about the piece of land, and you just spend a lot of time with it. The more time you spend with it, the more you're going to learn about it, the more you're going to learn what you can do, what you can get away with, who's interested in the land. Obviously, you are investing in it, but you're also going to have jurisdictions that care about what you do with the land. You've got neighbors. You've got the whole area around you that's interested in what you're doing with it and how you're going to be impacting it. So, a lot of what we do, developing land and shaping the world around us, it's you have a really big impact on the community. So I think all of those things factor in. Earlier we're talking, politics is involved in it, and so you have a lot of different aspects that you have to factor in when you're looking at a piece of land. So what is entitlement? Entitlement is, so when you're looking at a piece of land.
So before you dive in, I think just to set some context, once we determine what the highest and best use is of any parcel, there's typically a few phases that are involved. And the very first phase is, most of these lands that we're looking at, their farm and the ranch. When you go look at a parcel, there'll be horses on it, cows on it, there's tractors on it. It's an agriculture status, and they usually have something called agriculture exemption that allows them to save on taxes. So the process of taking that parcel from that current status that it's in and going all the way up until getting it ready, meaning it's ready to shovel ready for us to start site work, and it's kind of getting all the permits in place and figuring out all of the stuff is really what entitlement is. So we'll cover that more in today, and that's the goal of today, is to kind of dive a little bit deep into that. And then we go into horizontal development, which we'll probably save for another time. So Will does a lot of this stuff for us. So go ahead, Will. Sorry, I just wanted to set that context.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, no, really we're looking at a site and we're asking ourselves, what can you do at the site right now? What will the site allow you to do? And so, you're looking through what is the code, what is the city that you're in, or the jurisdiction that you're in, or the county that you're in. What are they governing the site with? You've figured out what your highest and best use is. We want to build 100 townhomes. We think we can get 100 townhomes. And you start going down the path of figuring out, why can't we do this or why can we do that? Are we going to have to bring something to the site in order to deliver those units? Will we have to modify a traffic signal? There's all these things that all these interested parties are going to want you to do in order for them to hand you a permit and say, hey, here you go build it, build what you want, and start selling these parcels of land or selling these homes and start making your money. So it's going through all that entire process, identifying all the interested parties, figuring out what they want from you, giving them what they want, balancing between what is going to make you money and what's going to make them happy, and moving through the process. So again, you're dealing with cities, counties, you're dealing with utility providers, the electric company, the fiber optic company that's blocking your pipe coming to the site. You've got environmental considerations. You've got, if you bought a piece of land and there's a bird habitat on it, that's something you have to consider. Floodplain is another thing. Yeah, you hear about all the time in Houston. It's a hot topic, but floodplain, understanding what you can and can't do in it. If you bought a piece of land and it's all in the floodplain, that's probably a problem. And then wetlands, if you have a little stock pond in your backyard, you think it looks nice, and lo and behold, the city is telling you, or the county is telling you that, you can't touch that, and they're protecting that because of their code. And that goes back to all these interested parties. They have a say in what you can and can't do. And you hear all the time, well, this is my land, this is Texas, or wherever you may be, but there's code and rules that you've signed up for by having that piece of land in whatever jurisdiction you're in. And then access considerations. You could buy a site that's in the middle of nowhere, or you could buy a site that's in the middle of downtown, and the access considerations for those two sites are going to be completely different. A lot of the times we take for granted the highway in front of our site, or the street in front of our house. We take that for granted. But when you're creating value and you're developing all this land, a lot of the times you're going to be the one. This huge return on investment is there because you're doing all the hard stuff that other people aren't willing to do, and that's where that's where the biggest returns are.
That's right. I mean, you always have to solve for the hard stuff. I mean, if it was easy, everybody's going to do it, right? I think what would be really cool and interesting is if you're able to pull up any one of the sites. You can even just post something up on LoopNet. None of our sites. I mean, something on LoopNet, and just maybe just quickly. I think it'll be interesting to see some of this analysis. Of course, you don't have to cover all of the environmental considerations and floodplains, but just kind of peek of how you do this, right? That would be nice. To kind of
I'll try to share my screen here.
I can stop sharing. You should be able to share.
So I'm going to pull up a GIS. So this is a map of the city of Taylor, and this is something that's publicly available. And what most cities do nowadays is they compile a lot of their site-specific information in one place. And so you go through things and you can see, okay, what's the existing zoning, and usually the zoning for that site, they're going to have specific rules of what you can and can't do. And in this case, we're going to look at this site. If you were to look up the zoning for this site, you would see that it's agriculture. And so this person, designated this at one point in time as agriculture, which gives them tax exemption. So maybe they're treating it as a land bank and they're just holding on to it. But as the world around them develops, utilities have been brought to their site, roads have been brought to the site. You can even see this dashed line. I'm assuming that is a future alignment that the city, so that's an alignment that the city said one day, we think this road would be better aligned here through your site. So again, you kind of see over time, these interested parties are starting to kind of take hold of that piece of land. And when you come along and you're ready to develop it or improve it, you have to contend with all these things that have happened around your site. Maybe you bought it 20 years ago and everything's completely different. And you can see here, you've got water in front of the site. So if I turn it off and on, you can see the water lines. Again, we take for granted the water in front of our houses sometimes. You know, can't tell you how many sites we look at where there's no water to be found. Wastewater as well. It's another one, especially East Austin. You know, there's a lot of missing wastewater around there. But you can see this site, I want to say, has wastewater in front of it as well. So you can see here, well, that's a water line, and then the wastewater line. It's a 6-inch wastewater line in front of the site. And so again, you kind of cycle through, okay, do I have water? Do I have wastewater? Where is the rainwater going to outfall? Does the jurisdiction require me to do a certain thing with that rainwater? Do I need to treat the water before it leaves the site? If I put a site plan together and I just ignored this roadway alignment and I said, no, I want to build 500 homes on this, I'll pack them in, you know, the city will come back and say, no, you can't do that. You have to account for this public road. You know, hey, by the way, we also want you to build a park and maybe, you know, a community pool, you know, and that would all be part of the, you know, the process of them getting to know you, you getting to know them, you figuring out what they want, them figuring out what you want. And usually that process starts with what we'd call a pre-development meeting. It's usually an introduction to the project team, showing them what you're wanting to do, them giving you feedback, and starting that song and dance, that negotiation of how do I maximize my investment? How do I get the biggest yield on this property? Darman, I think that.
Yeah, you know, I think that's good. I mean, so I think this is just, again, this is one of the things that Will does. You know, I think it's he can pull up floodplain maps. He can pull up a lot of things, and then it's also, you know, setting up a pre-development meeting with the city and then confirming that with them, like you said to Will, right? I mean, there's a lot of other things that go into it, not just you know, looking at this, but this is how we typically get started, right? And I think we didn't just want to keep this high level without going into a little bit of detail. Would be interesting for the audience. So it would be good to have any questions on this. Yeah, so thanks for doing that, Will. If you want to go back to the slide, Kavita. So if you want to move on to the next one. So, I mean, I think overall, right, we want to leave some time for questions as well, but there are some of the key success factors that we think are necessary to either invest into, you know, a consortium of a land investment, or even try to do this on your own, or even buy a land parcel, small or big, doesn't matter. Is that ensure that you're surrounded with people who know what they're doing. Even if you're not a first timer, it's always helpful to have smart, good advice and people who know what they're doing. So Will and their team really support us from Jones and Carter for everything we do. And so we're really lucky to have them and you know, and a good group of architects and environmental engineers and biologists and all of that stuff. So having that team in place is extremely important. You need to have patience. I mean, this is not something for, you know, if you want to come in and you will be tested at every step of the way. You know, you will be tested before you select the site, after you select the site, once you think it's a slam dunk, once you put your pro forma down, once you decide what the numbers look like, that's just on paper. Once you start going into the details, once you actually start doing the work, a new piece of information will hit you every day, right? You just have to have patience and work through the process. That's just the nature of the beast. And so I think that's really important. Of course, the old adage of location, location, location remains extremely important with any class of real estate, but also land. Like I said earlier, you got to consider that you're next to some sort of activity in the path of progress, schooling, retail, or at least some sort of announcements or news of developments coming in the near future, or just be a land bank and wait for stuff to pan out in the next 10 years. All of them are good approach, but have a good rationale, right? I think that's really important. I think understanding the risks, every parcel in my experience has risks. Some have less, some have more. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a high risk parcel is bad. High risk could be high reward. But the point is, knowing your risks is the most important thing. Understanding what the risks are, how do you really work through them, and having a game plan and an action is extremely important. And if you get comfortable with that, it's always advisable to move forward and have a strategy in place to mitigate the risk. And like everything else, saying no is important too. Not everything will pan out. You got to say no. Some things you start analyzing and then you drop. And so saying no is not a bad thing. Earlier is better than later, but it's never, sometimes it's never too late too. So I'll wind up with that and leave it to Will. Will, did I cover that? Would you like to add on some stuff there?
Yeah, and I would just say that relationships in this, especially in times where everyone's frantic and there's a lot going on, relationships are super important. And it goes back to investing in people and investing in relationships in this industry, because you can get into a situation where people aren't responding or people aren't being as timely, and time is money in this in land development. And so really investing in people is important.
Awesome. I think that was very insightful. Thank you, Dharma and Bill. I think we'll take some questions right now just to go through what the audience has in mind. I know Anand is just typing them out. So Anand asks, the perception from California is that Texas is a very low regulation state. What are the things that typically torpedo a land investment?
So, I mean, I can start and then Will can jump on. I don't agree with the low regulation state. So there's going back to my original comment, real estate's a very, very regional play. And so parts of Houston in general has very limited zoning regulations. So it would, it's generally, you can pick up a parcel and say, okay, fine, this works, let's go and put apartments, let's slap in, 300 units in here and 10 acres and move on. You could do that as long as there's not, critical environmental concerns or, it's not on an old dump site or landfill or something of that sort, which we've encountered in the past. But in Austin, it's very, very, very much zoning, zoning. And, I tie zoning to regulation, Anand, in your question. If you meant something else, please let us know. Its only thing is there's no property, there's no income taxes. But, other than that, the regulation, I think, is pretty strong. So in a way, it's good. It creates barriers to entry. So if you solve for the hard stuff and you have a parcel ready, it's good because not everybody can do the same, right? So it's rewarding in a way. What torpedoes on land investment? I think if it absolutely, if after all attempts, you get shut down by the city for a specific zoning change, or for the highest and best use you intended, or if they come back and they say, hey, well, you need to give us a lot more parklands, or you need to give us a lot more open space, or you need to build a median, you need to pull 2 miles of these utilities. It's no longer an easement from your neighbor's property, and it's going to cost $4 million to do that on a deal that you thought you were only making $6 million on. Those are the kind of things that there's multitude of reasons that could torpedo it. And that's where due diligence becomes extremely critical, right? How much due diligence are you doing up front to understand the process? And I always like to say, walk in with your eyes wide open. You know exactly you already know this is difficult. You already know this is hard. Now it can only get better, right? So the more you know up front and the more you can figure out, the better it is to get into a deal, right? I hope that answered the question. And then I'm looking at some of other Anand's questions. Kavita, it's what are the examples of a high-risk parcel versus a low-risk parcel? I think a high-risk parcel is something that's kind of like in the middle of, I wouldn't say high-risk parcel. Again, this ties back to the goals of what you have. If you really wanted to just land bank it, almost any parcel on the path of progress would be good. But a good example of a very high-risk parcel is we had a really, really attractive location under contract in a major city. And it was 25 acres, kind of like infill in the heart of the city. But it was on a landfill, on an old dump site. It was a closed landfill, but they've been dumping trash there for a good 5 years or so, right? So what happens on something like that is that you have to really go to the TCEQ, Texas Commission for Environmental Quality, and then you'll have to let them know that this is a parcel, and you'll have to show them what you're trying to do. And then you most likely have to install, whatever chemical monitors, carbon monoxide, or whatever monitors in each of the homes. And you have to disclose to each of the people that are buying the homes that you've installed these monitors because this was an old dump site. Something like that makes me extremely nervous because when people are buying homes now, even though we know there's not going to be any issues, if you're going to have to inform people that they're going to have this monitor in their house, it makes people nervous, right? I mean, I don't want to live in a house where I think there's going to be carbon monoxide. Why? There's other places to go live, right? And put my money, right? So I think that's a good example of a high risk, in my opinion. Again, I passed on that site, somebody else took it, and they built homes, right? And I came to know that they potentially didn't involve the TCEQ, and that was okay. As long as they're not under the radar of TCEQ, they would be okay. But I mean, I just wasn't comfortable doing it, but they were comfortable. To me, it was a high risk site. So I think risk is a perception in each person's, depending on your appetite and depending on what you think. But that would be a high risk. A low risk would be, you're next to school, you have utilities at site, it's a slam dunk. Well, there still might be some risk involved with permitting and zoning, but we can deal with that over the next several months. That would be a low risk.
From my perspective, I think there are two main things to look out for. Number one is you don't know anything about the site, or you haven't given yourself enough time to learn about the site before you make a big financial decision. I think that's number one. And then number two is, again, it goes back to the interested parties. Is what you're building, do you have support for building it? Does everyone want what you're bringing to the table, or is there a lot of opposition to what you're bringing to the table? And I think between those two items, that can make or break a deal.
So when you say everyone will, are you talking about the city, the county, all the interested parties, the neighbors? Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes in some jurisdictions, in some parts of the world, it doesn't matter what they think or care. You can build what you want, and Houston's the kind of place that's like that. In Austin, you can find yourself in a spot where you're good to go. Everyone hates you, but you can still build it. And in other situations, all it takes is one little thing that you didn't know about or you weren't prepared for, that they can hold your feet to the fire, and they can say, look, we don't like you, we don't want what you're building, and we're going to hold this over your head until you acquiesce. And so again, that ties in with giving yourself enough time and having the right people around you to snuff those things out and learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can. When you've identified something you want, that's got to be your complete focus of learning everything possible.
Right. And I think one of the things I found insightful when I started working with Dharma was also So I was just trying to get a sense of the relationships that he has built with the city, the county, just going through it over and over again. He's like, yeah, I think the city will allow for BTR or, whatever that might be, because you already aligned with what that county wants for that piece of land. So you feel a lot more confident going into it versus you don't know anything about it. And I have had people ask me, oh, is it already zoned and is it ready to go? Is it shovel ready? And people don't realize that it's a process, right? It's not just like, you don't just take ag land and, start building in, tomorrow. So, all right, that was a very good. Kumar asked, what's the pipeline for Cherry Street investments? We will talk offline. Feel free to set up a call, Nagaraju. All right, let's take, this is an interesting one. Anand asks, how often does one lose their investment to eminent domain, where, basically the city changes its plans due to new city government or changes its plans? And I mean, eminent domain is basically the city taking over that piece of land, right? Or a portion of it anyway. Does anyone want to talk about that?
I think it's, I think we can, there's plenty of other questions coming in too, but I think just really quick on that, I don't think it's very often, but they change, let me rephrase that. They change their comprehensive land use plans quite often, meaning every time there's a growth, they change their comprehensive land use plans. But how that typically applies to a parcel once they've already permitted it and once they've already given you a direction and a go ahead, that's not very often. That's what I'm trying to say. So Will, maybe you just add some, couple of lines on that. You're on mute, Will.
Yeah, again, I would, if you're buying and holding, I would be constantly looking at the master thoroughfare plan for the area and get to know that the county, the people that are in charge at the county, if you've got something that is in a county and maybe, find out if the regime is changing or stay tuned or stay plugged in with elections or positions changing for planning roles. I think that's the best way to kind of stay ahead of it. And obviously you've got the big ones like TxDOT. Those are a lot bigger and slower moving, so it's easier to navigate those. But sometimes the counties can act quickly when someone gets hired.
There's a question on this, Will, where did you put the floodplain and other, all the utility information that you were showing?
Yeah, so it's different for every parcel. What city are you in? What county are you in? That will dictate where you're going to search. And so, for instance, if you just type in City of Taylor GIS, that's what I was looking at. City of Austin has one as well. Round Rock, Georgetown, they all have their own GIS that kind of give you that inside look onto all the utilities and whatnot. And then for floodplain, it's a simple search for FEMA firm. And so they have a pretty crude map that you can search your site, and there's some, you can go in depth in the FEMA part. It takes a little bit of engineering to find out more about the floodplain, but it does give you a good high level view of where the floodplain is in relation to your site.
Got it. Yeah, I was just GI. So you just do City of Taylor, like GIS, you should be able to pull that up.
Yeah, that's a pretty good keyword. Another good keyword for any county is, at least in Texas, is type in the county and then say CAD after, CAD, and that's the appraisal district.
Right.
So, but a lot of times the GIS will kind of combine or piggyback on the appraisal district GIS.
All right. Let's look at some other questions coming in here. Right. Where and how do you check the areas in the path of progress? What factors to consider for path of progress?
I think that's tied again with the master thoroughfare plan, but also on a more macro scale. I think that's, who's moving where, where is Samsung or Tesla, or, what headquarters is moving where. It's you have that to factor in, but also at the same time, getting familiar and getting to know an area, and seeing where those master thoroughfares are going. I mean, I'm on calls all the time where even the county is surprised that, you know, they had this plan to build this road because they thought that this area was going to blow up, and it turns out the one just south of that was the one that was blowing up, so they had to reshuffle. So it's hard to predict, but the more you're engaged in the area, the better you'll have a pulse on those types of things.
I'll add just one thing. That's great, Will. But there's one thing I'll add is that these are boom times, guys. I mean, you know, this is not, you know, a normal time. Everything is doing really well. You know, given that I've been exposed to this for so long, I've seen 3 downturns, and you know, there's all times that you can look at land in different ways. And you know, path of progress typically can be done even by, you know, looking at reports, CoStar reports, how many people are really moving into a city, not just companies or announcements, but you know, what do people really like? Are you starting to see more, you know, a school, you know, a people, is the specific elected official trying to improve a specific school? There's more money being allocated to that school. Is there more retail coming in there? Is there more restaurants coming in there? There's, you know, it's just the quality of life in general improving. Look at CoStar reports. There's a lot of information and data that you can look at to understand the path of progress. I think it's a really interesting topic, honestly, and it's a topic by itself. But I think nowadays it's easy, right? As Will said, we can kind of look at this. There's announcements, there's news, there's companies moving in. Everybody knows Austin and 15 miles around Austin is in the path of progress right now. It's just absolutely crazy. But there's a lot of places other than Austin that are in the path of progress, you know, that nobody's looking at right now, right? You would look at, you know, different spots, you know, I look at Houston all the time. I'm a big believer in Houston. You know, it's not as crazy as Austin. You know, you can get deals sometimes, but it's not going to be as quick as Austin, right? It's just got to be a longer waiting game. And so there's so many cities. You know, Nashville was named as the most moved into city by what's that? Will, FedEx or UPS? They named it as the most moved into city in 2020 for whatever reasons, right? Phoenix is a hot market, you know. Colorado is hot. I mean, there's so many hot markets. You know, when we're in Texas, we only look at Texas. We only look at Austin. Just because of everything going on here in bandwidth, we look at this region. But there's a lot of things that you can consider. So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Dallas-Fort Worth has also been growing heavily.
Dallas is crazy. Yeah,
crazy. I'm curious about one thing, you know, like one of the things I've seen is a lot of these big retailers like HEB, for example, Walgreens. I mean, some of these big retailers do a lot of market research when they set up a future store. Is that something we can leverage or look up somewhere to figure out where things are coming? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, I think CoStar is a good source for you to do a lot of that stuff. CoStar's got a lot of data. Getting access to CoStar and a few others like databases like that is good. Having connections with the right realtors. We do it with a lot of realtors. So, you know, knowing realtors who deal specifically in retail space and who lease out retail space, and realtors who know the pulse of the market, you know. I think, you know, at least for us, where we call 10 people, you know, the first guy I call is Will, right? And he kills the deal for me most times. When it does survive, when it does survive, then we just call
it's past the Will test.
He's a deal killer, right? That's what I call him. Yeah. Anyway, so,
in a good way, right? Not every deal is a deal. So
that's right.
Cool. All right. What is the typical development cost or percentage? Sounds like a very generic question. Depends on what you're building, right? So
yeah, I mean, if you're talking about finished lots, I don't know, it can be anywhere from 30 to, you know, depending on finished lots, you know, you have 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 square foot lots. And so it's really all over the place. So it can really be we're seeing anywhere from 30,000 to 50,000-60,000 per lot, sometimes even higher, maybe 80,000 per lot, depending on the type of lots that we're building. Is the pure just site work and development, the horizontal development, right? So I don't know if that helped answer the question.
And then vertical, I mean, what kind of typical, just to kind of throw it out there, let's say you're building something vertical, what kind of cost are you looking at per square foot or something?
I mean, that's a tough question to answer without looking at what we're really trying to build. But if we're building, hundreds of units, it's a production home. It's not really, we're building 200 units in one location, right? There's economies of scale, there's efficiencies we can tap into,
right.
And then we're able to get a similar template that we're able to copy over. Of course, we focus personally on design and a little bit of the finishes and interiors and things of that sort. But, typically it's in the about 120 to 130 a foot range. Now, if you start going down the path of building spec homes and all of that stuff that are, $3 million, $4 million homes in Austin, we're in the $250 to $350, $400 range in Austin. In Houston, we're still in the $300, 200 plus range, now with all of where the lumber prices are. So really, I think it's a mix, and there's stuff in the middle that you can do at 160, 180, whatever it is. That's not probably the 100 home subdivision. So it's really a hard question to answer. I want to put numbers out there so people get value out of it, right? And they really get an idea of this. But I also want to caveat that with what they can really do. Right? So.
Makes sense.
Okay, so Kavita, I think Will needs to jump off.
Yeah.
Will, go ahead. Appreciate your time, Will. Thank you for
so
coming on.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you being here. Thanks. All right. When you raise money for land and development cost, or get additional loans for development.
So it depends on what stage we're at. If we're just acquiring the land parcel at the moment, and we think there's a considerable amount of time before we can actually develop, then we only focus on raising equity for land development and entitlements, and we treat the development portion as a separate phase of the project. But if we think there's a faster path to doing that and there's lesser variables, then we just treat it as one project. And then at that point, we would put a projection out with the land acquisition cost plus the horizontal development plus the vertical development fees, and then we arrive at a number, and then we still prep the bank. They still lend us based on land acquisition, but they already have visibility into what's coming down the road.
And sometimes, let's say we've gone through the land, we have raised money for the land and the development cost. When we're ready to build, some of your projects are like 100% for construction loans, right? You don't need to really raise money at that point, correct?
Yeah, horizontal construction is not 100%. Vertical construction typically is 80 to 100%. It really depends on the bank. It depends on how much equity you have in the deal. There's a lot of considerations. It depends on us, our experience, or our ability to do it, banks getting comfortable. We have some strong relationships with some key banks. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And yeah.
I think this is a good question that I would probably get confused as well. As a layman, what is horizontal development versus vertical development?
Well, so I mean, horizontal is everything from site work to laying your roads, your infrastructure, getting your sewer. There's on-site and off-site work. On-site work is having your roads in place. Monument signs, which is you see, this is River Creek subdivision, walls, masonry. Electricity poles, staking of the lots, curb and gutter if we're doing curb and gutter, or open ditch if we're doing open ditch, landscaping. All of these are on site, and off site is we need to pull sewer from a mile down the road at the sewer main, digging that road, laying the pipes. All of that is offsite. Horizontal. All of this that I'm describing is horizontal. development. Everything that you can think of that goes in from, getting the site ready to start for a home builder to start building his home is horizontal development. And the vertical is obviously, as the word implies, is you're going up.
So when you say shovel ready, is it horizontal development already done at that point?
When you look at a deal like a land development deal, we look at shovel ready could be just doing horizontal. But if everything is ready to go vertical, then we use shovel ready to do a vertical. So, I mean, it depends.
Okay. And what kind of time does each phase take? Like entitlement, typically what, 9 to?
It could be anywhere from 6 to 18 months, Yeah, we can got, honestly, it can be anywhere from 3 to 18 months. There's some counties, some cities that will just be super easy to work with, that work with you really quick. And you can get it done in 3 months. And then some are not so straightforward. You just have to take your own,
it also depends on how well you're aligned with them and their interests in that piece of land, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So generally how friendly they are is really important, but also what they want to see versus what you want to do is important. Right. If you want to do something different from what they want to see, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Uphill battle, yeah.
Which is okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with an uphill battle. I'll say that, because if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. If that's what you believe the parcel should be, that's what you believe it should be. Having that conviction is really important, and then they'll work with you. But if you didn't say, all right, no, I'll do what you want. So there's always a give and take, right? So
right. And I think that was one of the things I learned from you, because earlier my perception was, the county has already decided what to do with this piece of land and we have to go along with it.
Yeah, no.
But it's about that give and take, that, hey, this is a negotiation process. It's not a one-way street.
Always is. Always, yeah, always is. Always is a negotiation. And always, when you talk to the cities, this is, when you look at it without going through the process, it seems like an uphill battle, like everything else in life, right? You look at, should I become an entrepreneur? Should I do this? Oh my God, this is too complicated. Let me just continue with what I'm doing. But when you have that one call with the city and you tell them, this is what I want to do, right, guys? This is what we want to do. Look at what we're trying to do. This is what it looks like. It changes their perception. They start thinking different, and changes their, and they want to see nice homes. They want to see nice neighborhoods in their town, right? They want to see that. They want more tax dollars, end of the day. And so, they're all people. You're dealing with rational people. So for the most, so.
This is an interesting one. Let's take this one. Is it possible to work with FEMA and change the floodplain?
Yes, it is. It's called LOMR. I think, I don't know what the full form, I think it's letter of map revision, if you Google it, if my memory goes right. And then you got to apply for a LOMR with FEMA, and FEMA does revise flood maps, and you can get more density. Yes.
Got it. All right. This is a general the idea of what are some of the projects you have completed in the Austin area?
In the Austin area, we're broken ground on several right now. We're breaking ground on a few. As far as completed projects in the Austin area that are ready to view, we really don't have any. We've been new to the Austin market. It's been a year now. Part of the reason is everything in Austin takes 1 year at the minimum to rezone, right? So that's what we do.
Okay. All right.
We have a lot of we've got a lot of interesting sites and concepts and projects that are underway, and some that are breaking ground as we speak. So yeah, it's coming soon.
What size acres of land have you developed in the past? In what areas?
We're developing 200 acres in Leander right now, and we're under contract with 2 home builders for 100 home sites. And we're doing a parcel, and we're considering several parcels. We've done one in Houston. We're looking at one in down south of Austin. It's about 180 acres or so. And we're also looking at one right now in the Taylor area. And so we have about 300 development, and one that's currently that we're in the process of acquiring. And so, yeah, probably about total of about 400 to 500 acres.
Okay. All right. I don't know if this is a question you want to ask, but is pulling sewer most expensive? How much does it cost to pull sewer per mile?
Yeah, so I think pulling sewer is an interesting word, right? Because when I think of pulling sewer, it feels like I'm just clicking and dragging something, and it's there. It's a little bit more complex than that, from what I've been told to understand. It's just, there's understanding the easements. It's understanding who's willing to let you cross what road, and who's giving you the access to do that. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Typically, if you're, half a mile or so, or a mile at the most, it's okay. If you're trying to do several miles, it's got to be a really big project to justify the cost. Estimates are all over the place. So I don't want to put any numbers on it.
Got it. Thank you. What kind of ROI can investors get in a mixed-use parcel? This is a very generic one.
Yeah, that's really generic. I think it's tough.
Yeah, it's just really hard to pin an ROI on a specific acreage parcel in Houston or Dallas area. Yeah, typically what I can say is development deals of these kinds will be netting better IRRs than something like multifamily, right? Relatively, right? So let's say right now we're looking at a 14, 15 IRR on multifamily. We are looking at typically 22 plus IRR. It could go even 50 IRRs on some projects.
I mean, yeah, I think what we are doing is typically in the 20 to 25 range. More closer to 25 than 20 is what I would say.
Right.
Right.
And that's true of new developments as well, right? Typically,
we're comfortable delivering that. We're comfortable delivering those kind of returns.
All right. We are down to the last two questions. I don't know this question. Do you work with realtors and investors in a JV or LLP setup? We work more in a syndication structure, if you're familiar with it, Raza, where essentially we bring in investors into an LLC that buys the parcel, and then we go that direction where we actually have to set up a 506B syndication, and then we work with investors that we know and we bring them into the investor pool, and then we go buy the land parcel, and that might be the down payment plus the whole development cost of the parcel, and then we place a loan, maybe 50% or less, right? That's typically how we work. I don't know what you mean by, do we work with realtors? Are there realtors involved in the land deal? I'm not sure of that question there. Last question, I don't know, Dharma, you want to take this, or I think it's a question of what is the capital allocation strategy between passive income versus land buying for capital appreciation?
I think that's for you, Kavita. It's not for me.
I'll take that. I think, Ashok, the way I tell people is it depends on your age and where in your life you are, right? As you get older and you want to get more towards retirement, you're looking more for passive income. But let's say you are 30 years old, your kids are still in school, you have a great income, your spouse has a great income, maybe you're not looking at income, maybe you're I think at that point you're going to look at more equity growth for your investment rather than just pure income, because with income then you have to worry about taxation, right? So I think your capital allocation strategy will change in your lifetime and based on your life goals as well. Sushant asked, can you explain the term IRR and preferred versus preferred return? Okay, preferred return is quite simple. When someone says you have a preferred return on an investment, what that sponsor is telling you is 100% of that preferred return amount will come to you first before the sponsor gets paid. So if I tell you we have a preferred return of 8% on a deal, it means if the sponsor only makes 8%, then you get paid that 8% and the sponsor doesn't make any money, right? From a cash flow standpoint, or even from a sales standpoint. But an IRR is more your time value for money. So let's say you have two projects, IRRs basically give you an opportunity to compare the returns from two projects which might not have the same timeline and might not be of the same asset class even, right? So for example, if I tell you the IRR on multifamily is 15 and the IRR on new build is 24, now they both have very different considerations. So you can't really compare the timelines. So IRR for me really is the time value of money. The faster your money comes back to you, the initial investment and the returns, the higher the IRRs. So what I love about land deals is that it's typically, let's say, 18, 24 months, but you get massive returns in those 18 to 24 months. So your capital recycles much faster. So you end up with higher IRRs, returns over a shorter period of time, right? If that makes any sense. Anand asks, do your investors trade throughout all phases, or do they have opportunities to cash out after each stage? Entitlement, horizontal development, vertical development. I think, Dharma, that's your question.
Yeah, I think this is honestly, this is going into, I feel like this is going into a specific deal because we don't typically structure it as phases. So I would prefer to answer this outside of this webinar.
Awesome. That would be, I guess what Dharma is saying is this is very deal specific on how we structure it. It's not like one structure fits all kind of model. All right, I think we have answered all the questions, and I hope this was useful for you guys to understand this whole process of land development. Of course, we are just skimming the surface here because there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. And I know I'm just learning a whole lot just being around Dharma and hearing all these things. So I wanted you guys to get a preview of what this means to you if you're looking at investing in a land development deal and how complicated things can be. At the same time, what is the huge benefit that you can get to your portfolio from this kind of an investment? If you have any further questions, feel free to email us. I'll post Dharma's email as well here, epitome.dev. And then you guys have my email. So there was another question. When do you have a next meeting or call like this again? This call will be recorded and you can watch this recording on YouTube. So if there are any future requests for specific topics, then we will conduct a webinar on that.
Yeah, I think it'll be good if Kavita, if you have a way to send out a quick survey for people to tell us what they want, then that'll be, know, help us structure, more along the lines of what people like to hear.
I'll set up a feedback form along with when we're setting up the recording tomorrow. I'll set up a short feedback form for you guys to give us, sorry about that. I'll set up a feedback form for you guys to fill out and tell us what exactly you're interested in hearing about land development or horizontal development, whatever it is. Then we can put another webinar together for you guys. So with that, I'm going to close it out for tonight. Thank you everyone for being on here. I hope this was useful. Thank you so much, Dharma, for being here. I know you probably got a call. You had to jump off.
Sorry about that.
Surprised. Dharma is probably on another deal right now.
It's midday right now. Half the day is over. We have another half a day to go. So.
Right. This is Dharma's life, right?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kavita. It's great. Appreciate everyone joining.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Kavita Bartake. I hope you found this video useful. And if you did, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can get notified of any future videos I upload. I plan to cover a lot of investor education on this channel, and I hope you'll stay with me for it. If you have any feedback on future content you'd like to see me cover, please drop me a note or a comment on my video. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting me.